Hello, my name is Miss Boyd and I'm a kindergarten teacher. This STEM lesson that I'm going to be discussing is called Growing Little Seeds. I did this lesson with my students as a part of our growing unit. This unit lasts for about 2 weeks. However, it does require extended time so that students can continue to monitor their plants' growth. And at the end of it, we made vegetable soups with the vegetables that my students grew. I began this lesson by having my students watch a quick Brain Pop Junior video called Parts of a Plant. This video discusses the different parts of a plant and what those parts do to help the plants grow. My students also learned that plants require sunlight, water, and food to survive. Next, we read the book The Vegetable Garden by Douglas Foran. Through this book, my students learned that it takes a long time for plants to grow and that we have to continuously take care of them as they grow. During this time, we did a picture walk where I asked my students questions such as, how does the family in the story help the plants grow? This got the students to talk about what they were learning, and I was able to explain when they had misconceptions about anything. Such as I had one student ask, if plants come from seeds, why do plants not grow inside of us when we eat seeds? This was a fun learning experience as I got to involve all of my students in the discussion of why plants don't grow inside of us. And at the end of the discussion, instead of me having answered the question, my students had actually answered the question for themselves. Next, I had my students go back to their tables and we began to plant seeds in the soil inside of a closable egg carton. When the carton is closed, it creates a sort of terrarium. In this terrarium, it has its own mini weather system. And this is a fun way to tie in the role that the weather plays in plant growth. This is a great way to start planting because it keeps the kids' fingers out of the plants and you don't have to remember to water it. However, when the seedlings start to grow, you have to remember to move it into a regular potting plant so that it has room to grow. I orally walked my students through each step, although I allowed them the freedom of choosing what types of seeds they wanted to use and how many seeds they wanted to plant. After each student had planted their seeds, they use a spoon and just drops of water to water their plants, as I didn't want them to overwater. After each student completed their planting, I collected all of the materials while they wrote down the data that they had just done into their planting journals. This is not the first time my students have done data entry, so they are very familiar with this process. This journal was just a booklet that I put together with many worksheet pages where students filled in the numbers to represent the amount of water and later on the growth of their plants. After all the data is inputted, students are given a worksheet where they have to label each of the parts of the plants. I provided a large drawing that was posted on the board for my students to use as a reference to make sure they labeled it correctly. At the end of this lesson, I called my students back to the carpet and we reviewed the lesson by singing a finger play song. This song is to the tune of The Farmer in the Dell. This song goes, the farmer plants the seed, the farmer plants the seed. Hi-ho and cherry-o, the farmer plants the seed. The rain begins to fall, the rain begins to fall. Hi-ho and cherry-o, the rain begins to fall. The sun begins to shine, the sun begins to shine. Hi-ho the cherry-o, the sun begins to shine. The plants begin to grow, the plants begin to grow. Hi-ho and cherry-o, the plants begin to grow. This song was a great quick review for my students and they really enjoyed it and began to sing along with me. This was my first year doing this lesson, but my students really enjoyed it and they did an amazing job of taking care of their plants after we repotted them. It took almost 2 months before they could pick their vegetables and they loved that they got to make vegetable soups using their vegetables. This lesson uses science, literacy, and math, and all of their elements are blended together so well that my students had no idea that they were learning so many things. Thank you for listening to my lesson, and I hope you enjoy implementing it with your own students.